Good crowd tonight. I am extremely excited to be here to introduce Open Culture. For those who don't know me, my name is Alexi, co-founder of Santa Cruz Ventures, a local venture fund dedicated to the region. Backed by locals, by the way, 100%. So very proud of that. We are an investor in Open Culture. They're our 9th portfolio company, recently announced. So I'm very excited to introduce them. So, where do I start? They're proudly a UC Santa Cruz spin out. There haven't been too many that have crossed the chasm, had oversubscribed early stage rounds, led by world famous VCs, much more world famous than me. Consider the shift in computing, where we used to have expert-driven mainframes that eventually transitioned into the desktops and laptops that we use today. This is where Open Culture comes in and really shifts everything around in the world of cell and tissue culture. They are really taking legacy systems and processes that are large, expensive, sort of artisanal driven, and really just shrinking it down to desktop-driven utility, which has never really been done before, actually. So, really incredible. They have a V1 product that they've been showing off. We've seen it. It's absolutely incredible. And they have a line out the door, very large customers, eagerly waiting. So, without further ado, I'll hand the mic to the CEO and co-founder, Spencer. Give it up.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Alexi. Yes, the age of animal testing is done. Yeah. We've been trying to squeeze results out of mice over the last couple decades, and it's getting worse and worse. 92% of drugs that looked great in mice are failing in humans. So the FDA and the NIH thought about this and said, we're gonna phase it out. We've got new tools, we've got AI, we have these new things called organoids, cell cultures. So in 2022, they started the phase out, and for the first time, legislature shifted and said, instead of 2 animal testing, preclinical trials, in order to go into clinical studies, you can now use one of these NAMs, new approach methods. The FDA released the roadmap. 10 years, we're going to phase out animals. The NIH backed them. This is a couple years later, just July 2025, that they banned all research that was dependent on animal testing. You actually have to use these new approach methods now. And December 2025, months ago, the Modernization Act 3.0 passed the Senate. It's now law. And March, weeks ago, pharmaceutical, big pharma companies said, all right, great, we love this shift. What qualifies? Actually, how do we do this? What kind of standards are out there? And the FDA says, actually, it's kind of chaos. It's a field riddled with no standards, and it's very artisanal, as Alexi was saying. So the pharma companies said, how about you kind of get it together, FDA, and we're going to back you. So big pharma companies made the the foundation for the NIH to give them enough money to actually tell them what qualifies. Now, right now, because you saw it was March, is the race for standardization and renovation of the preclinical pharmaceutical industry. The NIH used some of that money and released the Standardized Organoid Modeling Center, SOM, on opening day, $87 million in grants, trying to get stability and scale for the organoids. Eli Lilly has been a massive player in this. It was just released at in January that Eli Lilly partners with NVIDIA to spend $1 billion to make an automated lab in South San Francisco, while simultaneously fully capitalizing A16Z and Andreessen Horowitz with $500 million to fund particularly instruments that use AI to understand biology, digital twins. A16Z said, that's a great idea, we're going to add $700 million on top of that. Now we're seeing over 1,000 animal testing centers close, and who's going to help? Who's here? It's a good thing that I'm going to move forward. good thing that we've had the solution baking for 5 years right here at Santa Cruz. Is when I got here, I'm going to rewind the clock a little bit. When I got here in 2019, let's see if I can move forward. Maybe iterate that. Yeah, when I got here in 2019, I was obsessed with making microfluidic systems. These, I saw that this field of testing and organoids was just really not optimal. And thank you for that. And so I was obsessed to renovate it. And I started with microfluidics, and I thought, how does human biology, how do we grow our cells? And well, we have a heart and we have a pump, and then we have all of this vasculature, so we have tubes. That's a lot more like microfluidics. And paper number 1, released 2022, was not only when you use automated equipment, it completely liberates your time, it also reduced a lot of the issues inside of the organoid models, that we saw a 2 to 10-fold reduction in cell stress, which in short, that just makes them look a lot more like actual human tissue. Simultaneously, my wonderful co-founder, Kate, who's in the audience, while I was working on that, Kate was working on an IoT network for laboratory automation. IoT, Internet of Things, is a great communication bus, and you can link microscopes with fluorescent microscopy and imaging, all sorts of like different modalities, electrophysiology, fluidics. You can unite your entire lab together, and you can get them to talk to each other, collect data. So that was a great idea. That paper released about the same time as mine, and I said, hey, what if we work together? This launched what we call the integrated system. So now you had automated fluidics plus this intelligence layer that united the whole lab. That enabled feedback-driven experimentation. So now the system could take measurements, understand, rank them, say, is this good, is this bad, and then iterate to improve the experimental process itself, while also collecting massively more data than any of us could using hands. Normally, people would measure, this is in brain organoids, so we're going brain tissue and analyzing their neurons for network activity. Normally, a researcher would come in maybe once or twice a day. Well, we go around the clock, and it's running experiments at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., all throughout, and found that we can now do long-term feedback-driven experimentation. Now, get that into the clinic. So, the latest release, Nature Neuroscience, is when you use this technology, deploy automation in the clinic, excised tissue coming straight out of the operating room. This is drug-resistant epilepsy that the patients need to excise the tissue. Well, we can actually handle that. With our system, you can characterize the origin point of the seizure, and we can use light to simulate its suppression. Pretty cool. That's where we left off. This is our product. We are Habitat. The collection, the series of papers led us to this. We spun out of UC Santa Cruz. We had IP written along the entire way. We licensed that IP. And this is our product. As Alexi was saying, the field of pharmaceuticals is massive robots, and we need the desktop moment. We need something that every researcher is comfortable using and programming like a laptop, like a computer. It's called Habitat because its fundamental purpose is to control the microenvironment of the cells. That's really what you're doing. If it looks, if you move it to a more pathogenic state, that's how you're going to make models that represent diseases, and so on. So a couple of its characteristics: walk away automation is that you can press the button, leave, go for a walk, take a vacation. Drop-in integration is that this system it has the nature of being very friendly with other equipment. You can stick it into a microscope and it operates off that. And then that microenvironmental control. What we do is we process the entire tissue culture workflow in automation. This comes in 3 great stages. First is loop passaging. This is the generation of stem cells. You start off with stem cells. I like to call them the kindergartners of cells because they can choose any job, any vocation. And this is making quality batches of stem cells. That then moves over into the organoid nursery chip. This is taking the stem cells, collecting them into aggregate balls, and using factors, you can simulate them into being different tissues, the heart, brain, the kidney, and that takes several days to weeks. That's kind of a difficult zone for researchers because it's really dependent on your hand, but not anymore. and then you use it. This is commonly for therapeutic discovery and drug assays. So for the first time ever in technology is trying to handle the entire life cycle of the tissue culture workflow. So I want to be Iron Man. You guys know this scene? This scene is when Tony Stark walks in, he's talking to Jarvis, he says, wake up, Daddy's home, and he starts to interact with his equipment. This is the tone of our instrument. So there will be a day that I walk into the lab and say, all of our instruments are named, by the way. They're named after habitats. So the first edition was Misty Forest. So there's going to be a day that I walk in and say, hey Misty, how did the run go last night? Gives me a little bit of a log back, and I say, great, fantastic work. I was at a conference yesterday and I heard a simulating talk from this professor out of Stanford. He said he just released a publication. Could you grab that? Could you fetch that publication for me? And then rip the protocol and just schedule up. Just schedule it up. Oh, cool, you can do that. Now use me for whatever you really want. I bet that you need to order reagents for, oh, you already did that, great, okay, cool. That's gonna be the tone of our system, because now we're in the world of AI. And if you use it correctly, it is very good at helping you along the road. You can find us in the Wrigley building. We're set up shop, 15 minutes from the ocean. Our workspace is awesome. And we have 3 of these systems built in-house with another 8 already in the field from our academic research time. We're designing the concepts of what this looks like, an aesthetic that is very compelling. So if you are awesome or you have a crazy amount of money and you don't know what to do with it, come by, and we're at the Wrigley building, so thank you.